What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Mets Central. And today, I'm not even sure where this is really going to go. I kind of, for whatever reason, maybe it's because of the World Series, the championship series, and everything that has went down in baseball. Maybe it's all of that. But for whatever reason, I've had an itch to be talking about the Mets. And I guess I could label this a podcast. I don't even know what I'm going to label this video as, but regardless, I am here flying solo to talk about the New York Mets, talk about my thoughts on how the offseason may look, talk about where the Mets could address certain areas, kind of recap how I felt about this past season, and then so on and so forth. But before we jump into everything, please be sure to leave a like if you do enjoy, subscribe if you guys are new, especially if you're Mets fans, and turn on your notifications so you know when I upload or go live next here on the channel. But I think I want to start with Billy Eppler and that whole debacle, because the last time that I did make a video for this channel, which was now 3 weeks ago, I am very bad with this channel, I'll be honest, and you guys have been killing it with the support, so I do feel bad. But this is the problem with being a hockey fan. This is the problem with liking football, even basketball. I don't make basketball videos, but I do make football videos and I do make hockey videos. So this is the issue here where I'm very consistent, but I digress. Billy Eppler. So when I last talked about the situation, we had no idea what went on. We had no idea that Billy Eppler was stepping down because of the fact that there was the phantom IL situation. Now, the question is, how did this happen? I'm not entirely sure, because there is so many times where teams have used phantom IL, because this past year, look at the Yankees. Josh Donaldson was on phantom IL pretty much the entire year. You literally saw a video of him taking batting practice the day after that he was put on the IL, or like a week after, maybe not the day, but like a week or two after he was put on the IL. He was out way longer than that. You've seen it with teams time in and time out, and for whatever reason, it ended up being Billy Eppler that gets snaked there. And I don't know if this is some player or if this was Buck or whoever it was. Clearly somebody said something to the league, because why would the Mets be the only team to be caught here with this? Because like I said, plenty of other teams, I am sure, 1,000% sure, have done this in the past. And I'm not entirely sure who it could be. Could it be Max Scherzer because he's bitter about the way things went with the whole exiting the Mets thing and how he met with Billy Eppler, and then Billy Eppler said, yeah, we're not going to compete for a while, to Scherzer, or like he lied to them and this was Scherzer's way of getting back. This is all speculation. I'm not saying that this is what it is, but could it be that? But at the same time, he's in a big run with the Texas Rangers right now. I don't know. Could this have been Tommy Pham? He's been talking a lot. Granted, I'm in agreement with him and he's been telling the truth, but I don't see why Tommy Pham would take the time to do this, because like I said, he's another one where he's on a team that's on a run. And did we know it would be the World Series at the time? No, but locked in playoff mode. Could this have been someone that was just annoyed that they were constantly put on phantom IL? Whether it was, I don't know, Tim LaCastro was at one point, or Tommy Hunter could have been one of those guys. I'm not entirely sure. Again, I'm not going to speculate. Could it have been Buck, since they ended up firing him? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I will not speculate any further. All I'll say is it's a bizarre situation, and I'm not entirely mad about it either way, because whoever did end up snitching may have done the Mets a favor in the long run, because I think the Mets could get themselves a way better general manager, and I think that David Stearns really getting more of the shots is not, or calling more of the shots, I should say, is not a bad thing whatsoever. So, yeah, I think that's really what I have to say about the Billy Eppler situation. I don't know if I have too many other thoughts outside of that. I think that's just such a strange situation, but it is what it is. But we'll move on and talk about, where do we want to go next? I mean, do we want to talk about the manager situation? Because the Mets are, of course, in search of a manager, and we know that this is it feels like it's the worst kept secret that this is a one-man race without officially being a one-man race. But it seems like that Craig Counsell is the guy that everybody wants. It's the guy that everybody's linking to the Mets. It's been well documented and reported because, of course, David Stearns is there, and because Craig Counsell is a very good fit for manager. And I talked about it when the Mets fired Buck Showalter, that Craig Counsell, I think, would be the best fit for this team, or when they hired David Stearns. It was one or the other, but I think that Craig Counsell would be a very good fit for this team because of the fact that he's probably the best manager on the market, because everyone's like, well, he hasn't won anything in this league. Who's available that has won something in this league? Plus, everybody hyped up Buck Showalter because he had all this experience and everything. And what happened there? Granted, I'm not going to say it was entirely his fault this past season, but 2022, you could argue that some of his decisions were not the greatest, but I still fault that more to Billy Eppler for his poor trade deadline acquisitions. And then, of course, this past year, you could argue that he took a lot of risky moves at points throughout the season and it didn't pan out and work out the way that it did in 2022. But I was never high on Buck Showalter regardless. To me, I'm at a point where let's just see results with a manager, because we're looking at some of the guys that have gone on deep runs. Obviously, Bruce Bochy is like one of the exceptions here of a experienced manager. Dusty Baker, of course, one an experienced guy. But then at the same time, you have guys like, Joe Espada, that's part of that Astros crew that has been helpful in those runs. You have a couple other guys that were first-time managers. Kevin Cash at one point ended up getting the Rays far, and then you had there's a couple other first-time managers. I forgot the guy that's with the Diamondbacks right now. I think he was an inexperienced manager, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, and then, Aaron Boone, a first-time manager. I know Yankee fans despise him, but you look there, the Yankees, let's be real, they've gotten more success than they should have with Aaron Boone as manager. Can you really attest that to Aaron Boone's managing skills? I don't know. Because a manager, let's be honest, at the same time, has probably the least amount of impact out of any, coach in the four major sports, because they're, deciding the lineup, deciding who's coming in the pitch, deciding all things like that, substituting, pitch hitting, regardless of the situation like that, where, with hockey, it's systems and schemes and everything like that. Football, systems, schemes. Basketball, systems, schemes. All those things combined, where with baseball, it's more just the manager's responsible for that, and they also are responsible for controlling the clubhouse to make sure things don't get out of control, which, quite frankly, I'll be honest, I think that, I know people trust Buck Showalter because of his experience, but it felt like the team was really just discombobulated at points throughout the season. It felt like that there was a disconnect in the clubhouse, and it was too soft, too loose, and there wasn't a lot of accountability. Some of the veterans I thought were great with accountability. I thought Francisco Lindor was one of the best with that all season. Nimmo was pretty good being accountable throughout the season. There are a couple other guys, but then you have some other guys where there just wasn't enough, and it just felt like a clubhouse that just had too much disconnect. And then you see the quotes with Tommy Pham that it was like one of the least hardest working groups that he was a part of. And he was honest. He said today, at the day I'm recording this and the day this is getting uploaded, he said that the Mets are a more talented team. It's really just the fact that nobody on the team had enough of a drive outside of like a couple players. Nobody really had a drive to go out there and win a lot. So yeah, obviously that's like over exaggerating a bit, because obviously these guys want to win, but like, it's a matter of guys putting in the work to win. It's not just going out there, giving it your all. You got to do it off the field, off game days. You got to be prepared. And it just felt like Buck Showalter never had these guys prepared, and it was just too loose in the clubhouse with these guys. So I think that they need to get themselves a better guy in the dugout next year, whether it's Craig Counsell, whether it's, I don't know if they're going to go the first-time manager route or not. I don't. If they do, the guy that I really want, but the problem is that the Astros have Dusty Baker retiring now, is I wanted Joe Espada if they were going to go with a first-time manager, but it would make sense for Dusty Baker to retire, and then Joe Espada then gets moved to the manager position. That would be the logical thing. So I'd assume that he's out. There was the whole report that they're not going to look external, so Carlos Beltran's probably not an option anymore. That was one of my other picks there for who I'd want to be the manager, but now it feels like at this point it's a one-man race for me, and the guy that I want is Craig Counsell. But at the same time, hey, I felt it was a one-man race a couple seasons ago when they were going between hiring Joe Girardi, and then they end up hiring Carlos Beltran. He ends up getting fired. Luis Rojas is the manager. And look at what happened with Joe Girardi in Philadelphia. He ends up getting canned, and then they go on to go to the World Series. And then this past year, they go to the Championship Series with a first-time manager in Rob Thompson. So it works out. It doesn't always work out the way that you expect it to. Sometimes these guys with experience aren't always the greatest managers. So I'm in favor of them going in a couple different directions, and I'm going to trust whatever David Stearns does. We are seeing that's going to be a well thought out process. It's going to be, there's going to be a lot of guys interviewed, so we'll see what happens. But to me, I think that Craig Counsell would be the perfect fit. You get a guy that has playoff experience, at least some manager experience, and plus, let's be real, the Milwaukee Brewers are not working anywhere close with the payroll that the Mets are working with. The Mets will give Craig Counsell a way better roster than he's ever had in Milwaukee, and that team wins like 86 plus games a year every season, making the wild card consistently. Unfortunately, being victims, for their sake, being victims of the team to get beat, and then whoever beats them ends up going to the World Series, since that's been a thing dating back to whenever, like the Yankees did it a while ago, or something like that. But regardless, yeah, teams that end up being the Brewers end up winning, or going far at least. So regardless, I think that he would be a good fit. And then if he's bringing his coaching staff too, I would love it if they could get whoever, I don't know the name of the pitching coach in Milwaukee, but whoever it is, would love that as a fit here, because that guy, I don't know what he does, but I don't know what he feeds the pitchers in Milwaukee, but Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, Freddie Peralta, and then you go to the bullpen. Josh Hader ended up being such a great closer for all this time, still is a great closer. And then you have Devin Williams who came through. You have all these guys where Jeremy Hefner, I'm not completely in love with Hefner the way that some Met fans are. I know some people think he's great. To me, I think he's like good, but you could definitely do better. Like I would say that he's, in the top 15, top 10 maybe of pitching coaches in the MLB, which he'd take. But if you could get better than that and get whoever it may be, I would absolutely love that. And I feel dumb that I don't know the guy's name in Milwaukee. Let's see if I could find that out, because that's just bad of me to not no. Chris Hook is the pitching coach. Is that who? Yeah, Chris Hook. So I don't know how long he's been there. I don't know if he's been there for a while now. He's been there he's only been there for a couple seasons, but still since 2019 it looks like. So he's been there enough, and I would love a guy like that part of the staff if they end up bringing in Craig Counsell, but remains to be seen with that. I'm not going to go too far into everything with the manager search until we know a guy, and I might talk about that in future podcast episodes or whatever this might be titled, whatever it may be. I'll talk about it sometime more in the future when we're getting more narrowed down with the options, but to me it feels inevitable that's going to be Counsell, but again, we'll see. Next up in the news that I kind of want to talk about maybe is Francisco Lindor being a hero for this team. And you know what? I know that some people don't like me because I'm critical of Lindor at times, and I feel that at points it's deservingly so. But at the same time, he got hot after I was consistent with uploading videos. Like, he got hot as the season went along, and I definitely owe him an apology, and I definitely respect him a hell of a lot for this past year. You have the news that he ended up having I think it was an elbow injury or whatever it might have been, or what. There was some sort of injury for Lindor, regardless, and he played through that the entire year, got surgery. He'll be fine come opening day, thankfully, and spring training, I think, too. But the fact that he had the season he had, one of the best shortstop seasons, with that type of injury, I have mad respect for Francisco Lindor for that, especially with the way that this team went. He could have tapped out. He could have stepped aside, gone home, and recovered and used it as an excuse to stop playing. But he wanted to be out there on the field. He wanted to be out there and be a leader. And you know what? I respect that so much more than you guys could ever know. 31 home runs on the year, 98 RBIs. had a 254 average, 336 on base, 470 slugging, 806 OPS. So nice that he got that OPS up, because that was one of the things that aggravated me about Lindor, even though it shouldn't, is that his OPS, it just felt like he was never able to get over 800. So it was nice to see that. But hey, you take, as long as he's over 750, I mean, you take that. You take that and you run. Would you love him to be like a 900 OPS guy? Oh, yeah, absolutely. But maybe when the Mets actually get some surrounding pieces with Lindor and some protection behind Lindor, it's going to get him going. Had 6 WAR on the year. What was his WRC plus? 121. Where was he among shortstops in that? I think he was actually the first, or like he was somewhere up there if I could find it. Batting. And then position, primary position, shortstop. And he was, actually, no, Corey Seager. Shame on me to forget about Corey Seager. So he was 5th. Seager, Crawford. Granted, Seager did not play a full season, but still 119 games is a lot. Bo Bichette, Gunnar Henderson, and then Francisco Lindor. So, yeah. Safe to say he had a good season, especially considering the fact that he was not playing healthy throughout the season. Could I find some of his other stats that I want to? I think it was F4 actually that he was first in when it comes to shortstops. But I'm not gonna waste your guys' time and bore you trying to look for that. But regardless, because that's on me, I should be more prepared. But regardless, Lindor, I have mad respect for him, hoping he recovers well throughout the offseason. I'm sure he will. And then we get some better pieces around him when it comes to the lineup, because that could really change things when it comes to the dynamic of the lineup and just Lindor's performance in general. You get him protection, it's going to help. But I digress. Let's move on to some of more of the, the bigger stuff when it comes to this team, when it comes to what I want to talk about. You have the Pete Alonso debacle, where do you pay him, do you not? I'm going to try to be objective about this and view it from both sides, because I don't know personally where I stand, because I am 1,000% in agreement and understand that people are saying, pay the guy whatever he wants. You need to have this guy be a lifelong Met. There's just not enough guys that the Mets keep around ever. And everybody wants this guy to retire as a Met and be one of the Met greats. And rightfully so. The dude mashes. He hits 45 plus home runs a year. Would have had 50 if he didn't end up getting plunked there by the Atlanta Braves. So, yeah, Pete Alonso, you get all that power. But then there's the other side where it's like, okay, if you trade him, what could you get in a package? Because realistically, you look at some of the recent World Series winners. You have the Astros. Who was their first baseman? Yuli Gurriel. Not the best first baseman. You look at the Braves, Freddie Freeman, but that was before he got paid, so they were able to surround him. Granted, the Braves really don't spend a lot of money, so it doesn't matter. But this is gonna ruin what I was gonna say, but it all comes down to at the end of the day, are the Mets still going to spend their money elsewhere if they lock up Alonso to a massive extension? I would assume so. So at that point, you pay the guy, because then you have a luxury there at first base, and you have one of the best first basemen in baseball. But at the same time, if they're not going to, maybe you explore trading him, getting some pitching help, and then you go out and sign a first baseman in the offseason, whether it's, I don't know really who's available outside of like Rhys Hoskins, who's coming off an injury. So I don't know if you do that, but there will be guys available at first base. But you look at some of the previous winners before Freddie Freeman, you have the Dodgers. Max Muncy was their first baseman. You go back to 2019. Matt Adams was the first baseman, and Ryan Zimmerman with the Washington Nationals. You go back to 2018 with the Red Sox. It was Mitch Moreland. Then you had Yuli Gurriel again Anthony Rizzo, 2015 with the Royals. I don't know why I forget. Eric Hosmer. Eric Hosmer. So, regardless, you don't need the best first baseman to win a World Series in particular. But at the same time, hey, if it's a luxury the Mets are willing to keep, then it's not my money. As long as they're spending money elsewhere still, then I'm fine with it. But if this means that the Mets are not going to spend money elsewhere, then you have to at least consider it, because I don't know how much money realistically Pete ends up getting. And that's the thing that's scary, because I don't think he deserves really a whole lot more than Freddie Freeman, considering I think Freeman's the best first baseman in baseball. So yeah, you're in a tough spot. I don't know why I'm saying a lot. What am I, a rookie here? But you're in a tough spot when it comes to the Pete Alonso thing. But hey, if you want to keep him around at least for the year and try and get some run with him while he's here, so be it. But they got to surround him with some good pieces this year, which leads to the offseason, leads to where the Mets really need to address. And this is going to be really rough for the Mets to patch a lot of these holes come this offseason. But you have a smarter guy at the helm in David Stearns, and I trust him to construct this roster and figure it out. The Mets are in a spot where they have two legitimate starting pitchers in Kodai Senga and Jose Quintana. They have one reliable relief pitcher in Edwin Diaz. You have Alvarez. Narvaez, is he under contract for next year? Regardless, if it's Narvaez, you can find a backup catcher. I'm not worried about that. That's the least of the issues. That should be one of the least worries here as Met fans. Pete Alonso, you're good at first base there if you don't end up moving him. Second base, that's where things get a little questionable. You want to try and get better than McNeil. Do you trust McNeil to bounce back? Do you rock with Ronnie Mauricio or one of the young guys? Third base, same sort of question. Brett Beatty, do you want to rock it with him, or do you want to get a veteran in here? To me, I would not be opposed, where this is where, again, unprepared, but I want to look at the upcoming free agent list. I would not be opposed if the Mets could find a third baseman that would sign for just 1 year, come in, be a veteran, and then just fill the void. So, Brett Beatty could get more developed into a role here. But there's really not a lot of options. Like Joey Wendell, you'd probably want a righty though to platoon with Beatty. And outside of that, I mean, with righties it gets tough. You have Josh Donaldson, no. Matt Duffy, no. Longoria wouldn't be awful, but if he wins a World Series, he's retiring. Chapman, he's going to get a big deal somewhere. Turner's going to opt into his option. Gio Urshela, IKF, those are your third basemen available. You're really limited there, but granted, again, that's another thing where if they're looking for a platoon guy, they could find something. Shortstop, Lindor's a shortstop. You're not worried. Left field, there's a hole. Center field, Nimmo, unless he moves to a corner. Right field, there's a hole. Obviously, and then DH, of course, is the biggest elephant in the room, potentially. So that leaves you with a lot of holes on the roster. Granted, I'm not as worried about the rotation as most people might be, because I think if you go out there, you pay the big bucks to get Yamamoto or one of the top starters, and then you get a decent number 4, and look at some of the guys that the Diamondbacks are throwing out there. You could just find a way to get to that point, get yourself to the playoffs, get yourself there. It's a matter of what you do come later in the season. And hey, maybe the Mets will be content with rocking with whoever the hot hand is, whether it's David Peterson or the hot arm, I should say. David Peterson, Tyler McGill. Hey, Jose Butto actually gave you some decent starts, too. Jose Butto actually gave respectable starts for the Mets. So maybe you find a way there. To me, I would love it if the Mets could actually build a better bullpen, potentially. I think building a better bullpen would help this team a lot more. Go out there and get some legit arms versus these optional relievers that they had this past year where it was boom or bust, and there was none of them that boomed. Jeff Brigham had a 1 week insanity run. Trevor Gott had like a week of being good. Like Brooks Raley, I'm fine with him. He was the other arm, I guess I should have mentioned there. Brooks Raley, hit my mic, I'm sorry. Brooks Raley, I'm fine with. I would not be opposed to bringing Drew Smith back. He's not my favorite option, but if you gotta do it, you gotta do it. He could be a lower leverage guy, but hey, like go out there and spend the bucks. Like whether you want to bring Robertson back, whether you want, I don't know if Josh Hader would be willing to come here, given he's probably gonna want to close somewhere. But you go out and spend the bucks there. Just getting help in the bullpen, I think, would help a lot more, because then the Mets too could put themselves in a spot where maybe they could use openers every now and then. Just be like a smarter baseball team, and it's a copycat league. You got to look around at what teams are doing and what gets teams to the World Series versus, you know, what necessarily wins you the most amount of regular season games. Obviously, you need to win enough regular season games to get you to that point where you have the chance to, but all it takes is getting in, and it took 84 wins to get in this year. I think if you have a rotation of Senga, Quintana, and then whether it's Yamamoto, and then, I don't know, you get Jordan Montgomery, Sonny Gray, whoever it might be, and you have those four, and then you have, you know, a mixed bag at the number 5 starter, maybe an opener every now and then, I think that should be enough to get you those wins, as long as your bullpen's stronger and as long as your lineup's better, which I think that's the main point that we need to get to, is this lineup. Is Juan Soto an option? That solves your left field issue. Is Ryan Clifford ready? Did I mess his name up? Did I pull a Mark from Big Apple Hockey? Did I mess his name up? I don't know why I feel like I did. I don't think I did. Did I? Please tell me I didn't. Ryan Clifford. No, I didn't. Or Drew Gilbert. That was the other one. Are either of them going to be ready come next season? Are they going to mash in spring training and prove their worth on the roster? No idea. I feel like such a casual fan. This is how outdated I am and how much the Mets disinterested me this past season. And here I am, for whatever reason, having the fire to talk about them. But regardless, is Ryan Clifford going to be ready? Or Drew Gilbert? Could you sign a Teoscar Hernandez until one of those guys are ready? Like, the Mets are in such a good spot where they could do something like that. Like, you sign a guy to a 1-year deal, sign a veteran, whether it's bringing maybe Mark Canha back, whether you go out and sign Cody Bellinger, whether you get one of these other guys to play the outfield just for a year until these prospects are ready to come through. Juan Soto comes in to play left. And if they could somehow swing an offseason of Yamamoto, Ohtani, and Soto, that would be huge, because Ohtani would address the DH position, and you're looking at a very scary lineup, and plug and play with the rest of it. You're very top heavy then at that point, and it's easier to fix at the deadline the back end of your lineup there, or the lower parts of your lineup, versus needing to go out there and get a gigantic bat, which is what the Mets desperately needed in 2022, and they didn't want to do it because it costed too much. If you don't want to be in that position, you have to put yourself in a prime position this offseason to get to that point. But I'll leave it with, you know, a brief thoughts of the 2023 season. Disappointing. I was disinterested very early in the season. I tapped in the games here and there, but like once it was like August, September, I was a very casual viewer, which is so unlike me, because even when it was 2017, 2018, this team was just brutal. I was tuning into every single game regardless. 2021, 2020, all these seasons, I've been so, you know, in tune. This year just like really was the first time I fell in love, or I fell out of love with the sport for a bit. And then the playoffs, like, it got me amped up. And it's like, I need to see this type of baseball in Queens come September. Or come October. September. We see it in September. Unfortunately, not for the best. But I want to see it come October. Waving the rally towels. Clapping and on our feet all game. 2 strikes. Doing the clap. I want that. high-fiving strangers when Lindor hits a grand slam to break open the game. I want those moments so bad at Citi Field. Starting next season, I want that badly. But let's see what this offseason brings. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, watching if you did, because I went on just a rambling session. For whatever reason, like I said, I had an urge to talk about the Mets. I have no reason or no exclamation as to why. Did I say that right? I can't say that for whatever reason. Exclamation. Oh, I cannot talk. Oh my God. What is wrong with me? I have no reason why. I have no rhyme or reason why. I'll leave it at that. I cannot speak English at all, apparently. But anyway, yeah. Let's see what this offseason brings. And let's hope that there's legitimate reasons to be excited about next season. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, please be sure to leave a like. I would appreciate that a ton. Subscribe if you guys are new, especially if you're Met fans. Turn on your notifications so you know when I upload or go live next on the channel. And I will see you guys in the next one. Let's go Mets.